Excellent. All right, we're live, so I'll be back in a few minutes.
Okay.
I am hearing a little something right now. Do one of you have music or something on in the house?
Oh, my husband does.
Okay.
I can ask him to turn it off.
All right.
I will.
Well, it's not a lot. I just was hearing something. So
Yeah. Well, I think I'll do
maybe
that.
just down a little bit, to be off. Thank you. All right, we'll be live in less than a minute here. Oh, we're going to be live about right now. Let's see. Well, good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Bridges Conversations. My name is Steve Gibbons. I am the executive director of the Bridges Foundation in St. Louis. We are almost a 40-year-old organization that brings the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola in everyday life to those who want to participate with us. So today we are having a conversation with two of our prayer companions. Those are those people who lead other people through the spiritual exercises. We have Karen Siebenberger and Marian Love. And so why don't we begin with that and let you guys introduce yourselves a little bit. Tell us about it's always good to hear about your own family history, your story of faith, where you came from, a little bit about how you first came to learn and experience the spiritual exercises, and kind of what brought you to the Bridges community. So we'll start with Marian.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Marian Love. Grew up Catholic, one of 7 children, went to Catholic grade school, high school. Let's see. How I first learned about the spiritual exercises, I was a nurse taking care of the Jesuits in, at the time was Fuse Pavilion, and we eventually moved to Jesuit Hall. But what struck me about taking care of them in their physical and maybe mental diminishment was that their spirituality really stood out for me, how much they really incorporated that, how important it really was to them. And it was while I was working there that I heard about the spiritual exercises. And so I asked a lot of questions about that and learned about the Bridges program, and I signed up and received the exercises. And that was back in 1993. And I, at the time, was discerning whether or not to leave nursing and pursue full-time ministry. And so that first experience with spiritual exercises really did confirm that to leave nursing and pursue my education for ministry. And So that was pretty powerful experience. And I've been with the Bridges program ever since.
Nice. Thank you.
Mhm.
Karen Siebenberger, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, hi. Yes, I'm a Bridges prayer companion. I'm married to my husband Larry for 41 years, and we have 3 grown daughters and 7 grandkids. I was born and raised in St. Louis, a cradle Catholic, attended all Catholic schools. I was one of 5 kids, so I had 3 brothers. I have 3 brothers and a sister. Um, I have a very large extended family. My dad was one of 7 kids, so there were 31 grandchildren on that generation. And then my mother had a brother, and I had another 6 cousins on that side. So a large family. And in kind of thinking back on family history, um, I think it's interesting that certainly for my parents' generation, and really certainly for my grandparents, there was a lot of emphasis kind of on country of origin roots. That was like we're Irish, some 3/4 Irish and 1/4 German, and that just happened to be important in their life. Um, so for me, even though I went to Catholic schools and a Jesuit university, I didn't know anything about the spiritual exercises. And I kind of thought that was interesting since St. Ignatius of Loyola, um, he wrote the exercises and he established the Jesuits, and Jesuit education. So I felt like I should have known about that, but I didn't. So in 2017, I was just a couple of years out from having lost my job. So I was in a time of transition, and I did have a lot of new things coming up. I had decided to start my own consulting company. I had my first St. Louis grandchild was going to be born, and I know I was going to be very involved in childcare. But I saw a blurb in the bulletin about the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius of Loyola, and I thought I really should know about those. So that really is what piqued my interest. I thought I'm at least going to go to the information session and find out a little bit more about that. And when I had gone, even though it was a commitment of 8.5 months to do the Bridges program, and I had a lot of things going on in my life, I just was really moved that this was something that I was going to do. And of course, it was a life changer for me. It was. And so then when I finished the exercises, I knew pretty well that I wanted to continue. So I've continued with Bridges and went through the training to become a prayer companion. And so now I accompany other people on their faith journeys.
Thank you, Karen. So we're having this conversation right now because we're about a week out from Thanksgiving, and we thought it might be just a good time to have a conversation about that, that underlying idea of gratitude that underlines not only Thanksgiving, but really what should be our Christian walk. And so we're going to be talking about that today. And I thought it might be fun just to begin with briefly from each of you. What did Thanksgiving look like at home when you were a kid? And what does it look like now? Those things change over time, but just briefly, kind of what's that look like? We'll start with you this time, Karen.
Oh, okay. Well, as a child, it was wonderful getting together with all those cousins. It was wild. It was fun. We always went to my paternal side, and my grandparents on my mother's side would accompany us. So it was a big crowd. My aunts were all very good cooks, lots of food. They got out all the good china and sterling silver, and we had these big meals. And then after the meal, thinking back now, it seems kind of funny to me, but the girls all had to do the dishes.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So
Yeah.
there was
That's not my house anymore. I'm just saying. But, yeah.
right back then. That was just how it was. The girls went in the kitchen, and not a dishwasher to use. So it was all hand washing and drying, and lots of wet dish towels. And while we were doing that, the adults would be then in the dining room after we had cleared the table for them, and they started a big card game of gin rummy, and a lot of laughter, a lot of rowdiness. So it was really a lot of fun. And then the kids were all conspiring on who could spend the night at each other's houses, so that conversation was all starting. And I'd say, it wasn't so much, we didn't, even though we were all very Catholic, we would say grace. It wasn't really so much tied into a religious holiday as much as family and the getting together and enjoying each other and the food.
Yeah.
So that was growing. That was mine as a child.
Yeah. Food and family for sure.
Food and
Yeah,
family.
that's
Yes.
right. How about you, Mary?
Well, I would have to say my experience was similar in that we went to my maternal grandparents' home, but it was a small group. We all fit around one table because I only had one cousin on my mom's side of the family. And again, everything was real fancy and the food was great. And however, as I when I got married and had children, we ended up having two Thanksgiving dinners, one with my family and one with my husband's family. And that got crazy because, well, it's just too much to eat two Thanksgiving meals in one day.
That's right.
And now I get together with my siblings and their families. And this year we're 50 in number. So we don't fit around one table anymore.
Yeah.
And I think what it says to me is how much family is appreciated in my family, how much being together is appreciated. I call it the mob sometimes, but we just all have such fun just being together.
Yeah.
And this year, all the out of towners are coming home.
Oh, nice.
And that doesn't usually happen. So this is our first year where everybody will be here together.
It's
We
also a
just won't.
time of remembrance, right? I know you've lost some really close family members just in the last year or
Right.
two, both your parents. So
Both my parents died this year. Yeah.
all right. Well, thanks for that.
Well, I was just saying then for similar to kind of Marian too as an adult, once our families got too big to stay with the cousins, we separated into our family, but there were already between my brothers and sister and I, we had 21, grandkids. And
Yeah.
we would, instead of trying to tackle 2 turkey dinners one day, we started a family brunch.
Yep.
And we had egg casseroles and French toast casseroles and potatoes and bacon and donuts, and everybody loved that. So we got together, and then everybody could disperse by the middle of the afternoon and go to the other side of the family and have the traditional turkey dinner.
Right.
And everybody really, really loved that. And we kept that going all the way up until COVID. And then when COVID happened, we took a break, and then we couldn't quite get it all back together because you keep growing and growing. So, by then we were about 75 people and nobody seemed to be able to take that on. I'm thinking about our last big family gathering before COVID. It was at Christmas, and my one niece wanted to do that. And she had in her mind, everybody sitting at one table. And there were 60 of us. So I was just thought, oh, that's crazy. But she cleared out furniture and from 3 rooms, put tables together. So it was this one huge long table. And then she had her kids going around and serving the people so we weren't trying to go through a line. And it was just so, so wonderful because we had no idea that COVID was coming and that this was going to be kind of our last time. And my one nephew didn't feel very well that day. And the next week he was diagnosed with leukemia, and which was such a tragedy in the family, and probably definitely the first of that generation to have something so major happen. he had a very, very rough cancer journey, but thankfully, now he's healed up. And we're also going to try to get together on the Sunday after Thanksgiving at a clubhouse. And I think we've got about 60 people again coming. So that's exciting for us too.
Really good memories. I encourage you all to kind of think about your own memories and make sure you're sharing them with your kids and your grandkids and allowing them to establish their own ways to celebrate. I want to just real quick, and I think probably most everyone who's on the line here has some experience or knowledge of what we mean when we say the Examen prayer. But I wanted to give just a very brief overview of it. It's more formally sometimes referred to as an examination of our consciousness, or maybe an examination of our awareness. So it differs in that sense from an examination of conscience that we do, say, before we go to confession. So in its simplest in the simplest terms, the Examen is meant to help us slow down, to pay attention, and to say thank you. And it's a prayer that can be prayed in as little as 5 or 10 minutes a day. There's a little kind of formula for doing it, although the formula is not as important as doing it. Father Joe Tetlow, a really good friend of Bridges, has his own little definition of the Examen, which is, how do things stand between me and God, which I think is a good way to encapsulate it. It's a way of stopping each day and paying attention to what's going on and how God might be moving. In its simplest form, as you can see here, the Examen is these 5 steps: to stop and to become aware of God's presence, to become still so that we can pay a little closer attention, still and silent. And then to review our day with gratitude, to literally, step through the day kind of hour by hour, not necessarily minute by minute, but meeting by meeting, encounter by encounter, and get a better sense of how God might be present to us in this day, and to pay attention as you do that to your emotions. So not only what happened, but how did I feel when these things were happening to me? And then to rejoice, to praise, to seek forgiveness, to thank God for these things. And at this time, you might even focus in on 1 or 2 things that really stand out, that are really resonating in you, and to spend especially some time being really thankful for whatever that moment in your day was. And finally, we look toward tomorrow with hopefulness and with a prayer that God will help us pay even closer attention to what's going on. So that in its very briefest form is what the Examen is that we'll be talking about. Here's a really good resource for you. It's both a book and an app, and they're both called Reimagining the Examen. The book was written by Father Mark Thibodeau, and the app was kind of created after the fact. The app is free, and it's a way to kind of guide yourself through the Examen every day in a slightly different way. They have a number of examens they will send you in your morning email if you'd like. And it helps you kind of pay attention in different ways what's going on. So that's our little quick introduction to the Examen. So I want to get back to Marian and Karen and say, first of all, is there anything particular you want to add to my little brief tutorial on the Examen? Anything you'd like to say? All right. Go. Yeah.
No, it was great.
Okay, thanks. I was wondering if you could recall from your own early experiences of the spiritual exercises, Marian in 1993 and Karen in 2017, or maybe you knew the prayer even a little bit before you did the exercises, but in recalling those early experiences, what do you remember? Was it easy? Was it a struggle? What kinds of emotions and discoveries did that uncover, and did that surprise you in some way? So, Marian?
Uh, well, I would have to say that for me, the examen was a struggle in the beginning. Um, I wasn't, I guess, actually confident about what it was about, and it felt more like a task I had to complete. But what changed things for me was something that I learned about it, and that was to, as the feelings surfaced during the day, to pay attention to them and have a conversation with Jesus or God, the Holy Spirit, about that strongest feeling or reaction that I had during the day, whether it was positive or negative, and to pray not about the details of that event that triggered something in me, but about the impact that it had on me.
Mm.
So I found that um, very valuable because I could go through a day and feel all kinds of feelings and not paying attention to them until maybe I would go to bed at night. And so some of those might be good feelings, but some of them might not be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really learned to pay more attention to what was going on in my day and how it was affecting me, and then taking it into a conversation with mostly with Jesus. It was who I prayed this with. And so then I found the value in it.
Mm.
Um, and now I would say that I don't do it as formally. I always start out with gratitude, and sometimes I never get past that,
Mm.
just gratitude and, having things from the day run through my mind. But other times, I do pay more attention, or I'm awake a little longer and pay more attention, and I can dive deeper into the experiences of my day.
This is a prayer you normally do near the end of your day, then it sounds like.
I
Yeah.
do. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'll note that, in many ways, that's how this prayer is kind of known. But I think, there's no hard and fast rule about that. If it makes more sense to you to wake up in the morning and review the previous day, that's fine. Or stop halfway through your day while you're eating lunch and do it. The important thing is to do it, right? Is to stop and to spend that time, because without it, we miss stuff, as you were just saying.
Hmm.
When we don't stop and pay attention, um, we miss it. Karen, recall a little bit about your early experiences and maybe a little bit how that has changed and evolved over the years.
Sure. I'll say I wasn't really familiar with the prayer of the Examen before I did the spiritual exercises. And so when I started with it, I did struggle. And I think it was because I wanted to run through it as a formula,
Mm.
through these specific steps. And when I kind of moved from formula to just movement, the movement allowed me really to, kind of bring it home to me in a, more alive way. And, that's just something I really love about Ignatian spirituality, really, that it gives you that freedom, not to be tied to a certain way or a formula, or, you can kind of move into your own personal and intimate conversations, with God. And so that's then how it just kind of happened, for me. And I didn't struggle with movements because they seem so appropriate, to
Mhm.
put yourself into God's presence and then to go in at the first thing into, gratitude. And so it just flowed for me really well. And I didn't have to struggle. And then, so I would say, even now, I don't use the label like I'm going to pray the Examen. Um, like right now, it just becomes part of a natural conversation with God.
Mhm.
So I'd say I'm not married to the order of it and the timing of it, because sometimes it's just spread throughout the day. Um, and for me, rather than doing it at night, my Examen happens really in the morning. I do discipline myself in the morning when I get up. I do have I start my coffee. So I have a cup of coffee, and then I start, what I would say is my prayer time. And I have a physical list of people that I am praying for, both living and deceased, and especially those that are struggling with some kind of illness or something that's happening like right now. So I stay in that position. So that's kind of my gratitude starts with the gratitude and the thanksgiving and the petitioning. And I guess I would say really would be how I start a holy hour. Some people call it holy hour. And I realize it's a blessing at this time in my life to have the time to be able to start in a quiet segment. And then for me, after I start with going through my physical list and thinking of all the prayers, then I start journaling, and I'll start writing down about, more concrete things going on in my life, what might have happened the other day, emotions and struggles and, challenges, and really have that conversation, with God. And I'll ask for help and for guidance. And then I don't tend to stay with just a personal review, like personal of this is what I did or how this affected me. I kind of see it kind of goes as a ripple out, so again, kind of like a movement. I think about my life and then just the bigger life of the world and the impact and how God is looking at us and what God's desiring for the world. And, so it all becomes, that's moves me into resolve. And
I think what you're getting at here, maybe we can talk about this for just a minute or two, but and first of all, I know there's a few people listening live. If you have any questions, please just pop them into the comment section on Facebook, and I'll see them and we'll get to them if we can. But I think when we do the examen, we think of it as this thing we do to review our day, right? But really, what it's revealing for us at times is larger issues, right? Our moods, our things that we do over and over again, and we wonder sometimes, why do we keep doing those things over and over again? Or if we're finding in our examen things that really are bringing us alive when we do them, it also gives us the chance to say, yeah, well, why am I not spending more time doing that thing? So
Yeah.
Marian, can you talk a little bit about using this to kind of pay attention to bigger issues?
Right. Well, I think that what do I want to say? I want to bring in consolation and desolation, the movements that Karen talked about, to really pay attention to, where God within an event or an experience of a day might be inviting us, to make a choice or move towards something from where we might be right now. And also the desolating experiences, to see what am I wrestling with, and maybe over time see a pattern. And in that, finding some freedom in exploring that with God, that because that very thing might be keeping me from following the good invitation I'm feeling from God.
Yeah.
So to notice that consolation, its purpose and where it's inviting us, and noticing patterns over time. I'm not sure I answered your question, but
No, I think you did very well. Anything you want to add to that, Karen, or?
No.
Okay. Listen, we're coming up right up on about a half hour. We don't like to go too much over that. I do have one more question, and we'll see if anybody's got any questions out there. But what advice would you have for those who maybe are just beginning to pray this way, or maybe they're hearing about it for the first time and they want to get started? But what advice do you have for those who are, again, either just beginning or maybe struggling? What would you say to them? And what are there resources that you would recommend to them too? So, Karen?
Well, I guess if I were to advise anybody is to allow yourself the freedom of movement through the exercises or through the prayer, and that it should just become a natural flow, not trying to force anything on. So, when you stop and become aware of God's presence, I think it's just kind of natural to flow into that gratitude and thanksgiving, and that's really easy. Then the next step of taking a honest look at yourself and what's going on in your life, now that takes more courage, and not to be afraid of that, because I always know, I always just think about the gospel, good news, good news. It is always good news. So there's never really a condemnation or an accusation that's coming, even when you're being honest. But this help for moving past that and into the good news. So, so even if difficult things are starting to surface, not to be afraid of that, and to go with it. And usually your experience will be one of consolation.
Thank you. Yeah. How about you, Marian?
Well, I agree with what Karen said. Not to be afraid of what surfaces, because God certainly wants to give us some truth or some wisdom about that. And so I guess one of my pieces of advice would be to just be really honest in your prayer, even if it's something that you may not want to look at or dwell on, and to, even if it's a good thing, to be open to learning something new about whatever happened within that positive event, and to realize that it's not just like doing an inventory or like a review, like this and then that, and all that, but with the intention of receiving a deeper awareness about what went on that day. So that takes the idea of it being a task out of it, in a way, because it has something to offer that we had not yet realized.
Yeah. And again, I'll remind you all of this resource called Reimagining the Ignatian Examen. It's a book by Father Mark Thibodeau, S.J., and also a free app that you can download on your phone and get sent daily emails that will help you through the examen, especially if you're getting started. A resource like that can be really good. Another resource that Marian mentioned to me, and I'll let her talk about this a little bit if she can remember, is a book for children. Because as you might imagine, this is a great prayer to do with children to help them recall, their day. This book called "Sleeping with Bread" by the Lynn brothers and Sheila Fabricant Lynn, who's married to one of the Lynn brothers. Marian, what do you know about this book, or what do you think of it?
Well, I really like it, particularly in getting people started with the examen. While it looks like a children's book, it isn't just for children. It talks about different ways you could explore your day, either by yourself or with your family, or in a group, if you wanted to do that. But what the title of it, Sleeping with Bread, came out of this idea that in the concentration camps, parents would save the bread from their meals and put it under their child's pillow. So if the child would wake up in the middle of the night hungry, they'd have something to eat. And so the idea that the examen is much like that, in that it always has something more to offer us from our day, and if we look. And so it starts out with just asking the question, what was the best part of my day? Or what was the lowest point in my day? Or something like that. Some very simple questions that get away from the 5-step format, but just give you a way to enter into this as a new practice. But I've referred it to a lot of people to help them get started in a way that might seem more approachable for them.
Yeah. Good. And I know I don't have a graphic, but I know Loyola Press also has a kind of a children's book to kind of introduce, and it might be just called the Examen book if my memory is working well, but you might check that out if you're looking for a little stocking stuffer for one of your kids or grandkids this year. We don't seem to have any questions coming in, so I'm going to wrap up here, first of all, by saying thank you to Karen Siebenberger and Marian Love for joining us today. Everyone here in the Bridges community, wishes you a happy Thanksgiving in this holy season of Advent that's almost upon us. If you don't know about Bridges and you somehow just landed on this, please check out our website. We're at bridgesfoundation.org, and we'd be happy to speak to any of you if you're interested in learning more about the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola. Next month, we're going to be meeting on Friday, December 12th. And again, we'll be with two Bridges prayer companions, Kate Strobel and Martha Broyles. And we're going to be talking about Advent and the Ignatian practice of contemplating the Incarnation. Not only what does the story of the Word of God made flesh into the world mean, but how do we pray with that? And why is it that we want to spend time considering that? So that's what we're going to be talking about next month. We'll be right back here on Facebook. So mark your calendars, and we'll send you a reminder. So thank you very much, Karen, Marian. Anything to say as we head out?
Well, I was kind of thinking about, Steve. I love words, and just how we're talking about this at the time of Thanksgiving. And, Thanksgiving really was a secular American, holiday that started, and just connecting the words, thanks and giving. So the threeness, and how, we're moving in thanks and the Lord is giving, and, that's just puts us in that beautiful cycle really of the Examen. So, and then moving into, like thanks living is where we're going. So those were just some
Thanks for that.
random.
Yeah. Well, I was going to also mention thanks living. That that idea for me came from Marian Cowan from long ago, who talked about this idea of the gratitude in the Examen, that it just really does instill in us this sense of gratitude for everything, and then we live out of that gratitude in a very generous way. Then it expands our hearts, and so I do like that term, thanks living.
Yeah, nice way to end. Thank you both for being with us today, and have a good Thanksgiving, everybody, and we'll see you in December. If you guys hold on, I'll be right with you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.